G'day there guys, how are you today? Now I'm really keen to show you this spot once again. I've been here quite a few times and you'll soon recognise when you have a look at some of the landscape here. But there's a couple of things I want to bring to your attention during this episode on the channel. So I'll show you in a minute, but first things first, I've got to get my footwear sorted out, so I'm going to do that first. Okay, so it's now November here in Australia, and with that, well, that's snake time. And where I'm going, well, there's a bit of long grass and water, so a combination of grass and water. Well, I'm not taking any chances. I've got the boots with the thick, heavy soles. Take my other shoes off, and I've not ever seen any snakes here, but I know for sure that they're going to be here. It's just because of the nature of the place. It's very quiet, lots of rocks, lots of sticks, lots of logs laying down, and of course there's water. And water brings food, food brings snakes. But I'm not too worried about snakes. A lot of you guys worry about snakes because I'm Australian and you've heard the stories, spiders and all that sort of thing. No, I don't worry about them at all. I make a lot of noise and kick myself around, and you know, they take off before I even get there. Anyway, let's go and have a look. All right, well, I did tell you this was snake territory, and look at this grass. It's pretty high, and anyway, haven't seen anything, but this is a gorgeous location. This is down at the Joyces Creek end of the Cairncurran Reservoir. Now, you know I've shot quite a few times here before, and I've decided to come back. Well, to be honest with you, when you actually see this video, it's well and truly after Milky Way season has ended. But just a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, I was here shooting down here with these dead trees. I'm going to show you in a minute. The Milky Way core just resting in that western sky down there beautifully over this water here. So I'm going to continue on my journey through all this grass, get down there and show you the compositions I was able to get that night. Now, you may well remember about a year ago I did a video concentrating on a day to night time lapse, and I shot that video right here, and that's where the time-lapse camera was set up, right just about where I am here now, and I featured these two trees in the background. Now, for the purpose of that video, it was to demonstrate the concept of shooting a day-to-night time-lapse. While I was here, I shot a few single shots around here and a panorama as well. At the time, you probably may remember, if you've seen that video, there was hardly any water here. Now, this year, there's heaps more water than there was last year. And so that's enabled a couple of different compositions. But you know, one of the things, and one of the major things I want to concentrate on with this particular video, is to ask the question, what is in my background? So you may well be thinking, what on earth is he talking about? What's in my background? Well, let me put it this way. As photographers, we often concentrate wholly and solely on our foreground subjects here without taking too much consideration to what is actually in the background behind our foreground scene. Let me explain it this way. How many of us have shot pictures of people, maybe a portrait of this gorgeous couple or whatever over here, only to see the end result image with a lamppost coming straight out of their head? Or it might be a tree, or it could be some other subject that we didn't even notice when we were shooting the shot because we were so engaged with the foreground subject matter. Now, what I'm going to do is demonstrate what happened to me and the process I went through when I came down here not so long ago. So, let's get into it. So, this is how it was. When I came down here to shoot recently, it was dark, completely dark when I came down here. Now, I scouted this location heaps of times. I know the lay of the land here very well, but the thing that I had to be careful of, because I wanted to highlight and separate at least one or maybe two of these dead trees with the Milky Way core behind. Now, what I found was, when I took the time to actually let my eyes adjust a little bit to the dark surrounding, I could then see the lay of the hills in the background. And over there behind me, I'm not sure you can see that, there's a clump of trees just it's a bit of an island actually when this is full. that sticks out of the water. So it's a bit higher than everything else around here. So what happens? Well, if I was going to take a shot with this tree here in the foreground, I've got the semi background. Now, I'm not talking about the sky background, I'm talking about the land there, which takes away from my silhouette and my outline of the tree. And that's not what I want to do. So it's a bit like having the lamppost coming out of the head. It's not the same thing, but the tree's there in the background blocking the silhouette of the tree. So what I had to do was keep walking down here just to see if I could get beyond the shape of that tree in the background so I could get some clear sky. And you might think, oh, that's easy, you just keep moving down. Well, I'll tell you one thing, in the middle of the dark, when it's a bit hard to see exactly what's there in the background, and then also get the composition that you're after, that is a lot more difficult than you may think. Now, if you have a look at this tree here behind me, I did particularly like the composition here. Love the fact that that tree is, well, it's just a single tree, a little bit separated from the rest. But my problem remains. There you can see in the background, I've got this awful clump of trees, which takes away from the outline of the tree. So I had to move on. Now, you guys might think I'm being a bit fussy, but I can tell you now, I know I would not have been happy with that composition. The tree looks fantastic and the sky was awesome, but that background I would not have been happy with. These are what I call the 1%ers, the things that make just that little bit of difference to our overall shot and composition. And you know, sometimes it's hard to even see the 1%ers and you think, oh, who cares, 1% doesn't make any difference. Well, I'll tell you what, if you have enough 1%ers, they add up to a lot of value to your image. So, this tree right here is the one I decided to shoot. Why? Because as you can see, it's got a nice clear background. Now there's a hill over there, so I got my camera right down low here to shoot up that way. And I think this is a much better composition than the other tree, even though the other tree is probably just as good as this one. You know, there's plenty of trees along here. I just had to walk down and find the one that I liked. Okay, so while we're here, I'll go through my settings and my gear that I used to capture this shot. Firstly, I was shooting with my Nikon Z6 and my trusty 20mm f1.8 lens. So, as I often do, I stopped that lens down to f2.8. Why do I do that? Just to get rid of a little bit of chroma around the edges of the lens. Now, because I was going to shoot, the Milky Way was absolutely awesome this night. So because my intention was to feature that Milky Way core and there was zodiacal light. We have the most amazing displays of zodiacal light here in the southern part of Australia during October. And it's just fantastic. So anyway, what I was going to do was stack that sky for noise reduction in sequator. So I shot 10 exposures at f2.8 at ISO 10,000. That's right, 20mm focal length, ISO 10,000, and my shutter speed was just 10 seconds. So I like to keep those images as close as possible as I can together, and that ensures that the stars haven't moved quite so much as if I'd had longer shutter speeds, and that's why I've raised the ISO. Then, once that was done, without moving my camera or tripod, I changed my aperture on the lens to f5.6, and my shutter speed, I left it 10 seconds because it really didn't matter. And then my ISO back down to 500. Okay, so f5.6, ISO 500. Did a little bit of light painting around the foreground. I didn't need very much. It was more just to accentuate the highlights of the tree. A little bit of the stuff in the water, a little bit of grass on the side of the bank, and the end result of that image, absolutely love it. Now, I absolutely love this tree. Look at that one. Just the gnarly bits and pieces. But as you can see there, as I move around, it's not quite right. The background has got those trees behind it once again. That's no good. So I had to move on to get around to the other side of the tree. I'd have to be facing in about a northeasterly direction to get the nice clear horizon. No Milky Way over there, I'm afraid. Now, as you can see here, the water level is, well, it's way down there, but at high water mark, the water is right up into these rocks here, and this whole plain over here is covered in water. So the Cancarran Reservoir extends right down here. That's why these hills are formed. I guess the creek over the many centuries has just dug this trench all the way through here. I find it fascinating. And these trees, well, they've survived through everything. Floods, rain, drought, everything. I mean, they're dead, but they're still here, and they're providing awesome nightscape images subject matter for us. Just love it. All right, well, it took me a while to find my second subject. There's lots of trees here, as you can see, and I guess because there's so many of them, it took me a while to sort of wade my way through them all. But this one right here, that is the one that I decided to shoot. Now, because it's surrounded by quite a few other trees, I decided on a portrait orientation with this shot. I think I preferred, in hindsight, the horizontal landscape orientation simply because the Milky Way was going in a sort of a horizontal shape, so I fit more of the Milky Way in. Nevertheless, I was able to fit all of the tree in and exclude most of these other trees around, which was the point of what I was trying to do. As far as my settings go, I shot this pretty much exactly the same as the other one. Same camera, same lens, nice low down tripod position. I shot 10 images with the intention of stacking for noise reduction. So I shot them the same as before, f2.8, ISO 10,000, 10-second shutter speed. So that's really good. Then I changed my aperture to f5.6 and my ISO to 500. And I just extended my shutter speed to 15 seconds only because I just needed a little bit more time to get back up there to do the light painting. When it comes to foreground light painting, I've said this before and I'll say it once more here. It makes no difference what your shutter speed is. You can have it as short or as long as you wish, because the intention is not to use any of the stars in those foreground shots. So in other words, I'm going to mask them out and get rid of them anyway. So you can shoot at any aperture, at any shutter speed, and virtually any ISO. There's a lot of variation there that you can introduce. So anyway, I shot this at 5.6, 15 seconds. I could have just done 5-second shutter speeds because sometimes I'm only lighting for about 4 or 5 seconds. Doesn't matter. But anyway, I think that shot looks pretty good as well. Now, I did mention before that this is pretty much classic snake territory. Well, it's a hole right here that who knows what's living up in this log right now. So I think I might leave that one alone. Well, it's just fantastic being out here. You know, recently I've been doing a lot of videos concentrating on post-production and I guess looking at some of the more complex areas and a fair bit of brain power required. Today, I just wanted to get back out into the field and perhaps look at some of the more basic techniques, compositional techniques that I think are really important when we go out shooting our nightscape images. You know, I know a lot of people that shoot nightscapes who just go out and hope for the best. You know, if you're a landscape shooter, the first thing you're looking at is composition. You're looking at the lay of the land and you're trying to work out how you're going to fit all of the elements in and trying to work out which elements want to be the feature of your photography. Well, it's no different when we shoot at night. The only difference is it's harder to see the subjects that are out there. So like I've suggested earlier, sometimes you just got to sit there and wait and have a really good look around and just see what you can see. And you will find, as soon as your eyes are accustomed to the darkness, you'll see shapes and shadows and silhouettes, and that's when you can start to create. And I've talked about this plenty of times before, but I'll keep talking about it, because the number one rule of photography, doesn't matter what sort of photography it is composition and subject. That is always the most important thing. Well, once again, I've just so enjoyed myself being out here in the sunlight. It's pretty warm now. It's been actually pretty hot and then got cold. Now it's starting to warm up again, and it's probably when I hibernate, a bit like the snakes and the lizards and everything else around here. But at the moment, I'm just enjoying this gorgeous countryside. So thanks for joining me once again. I know this has been a little bit more laid back, a little bit simple, but out on location, you can't argue with that, can you? So I'd love to hear your comments about any of the subject matter that I've talked about today down below. Read those. I love reading those. If you want to subscribe to the channel, if you love this type of content, talking about nightscape images and night photography in general, then love you to subscribe as well. Anyway, I'll be looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Who knows what I'll be getting up to, but I'm looking forward to it. So I'll see you guys then.